G'day and welcome back for more Space Engineers Survival. Oh, this tank is so close. We are so close to finally getting vengeance. I think I've said that about 12 times, or at least I've thought it many more than that. But genuinely, this is... oh, I can feel it now. All we need to do is finish up this hitch, finish up the armor design around it, finish up the rear end of this, and do you know what? I've been thinking about it, and even though I was originally hesitant to do it, I am going to pipe up these extra welders because I would really like to be able to put armor in that spot. Just so that this thing is symmetrical, it'll just make me happier. And having an extra welder here will allow me to get that spot welded up for each launch. Yeah, it means that there'll be a few blocks that only get done by one welder, though I'm still hopeful we'll be able to get a very rapid launch, or a more rapid launch at least, having the 8 welders versus having the 4. After we've done that, we need a paint job for these two, and I think I'm going to bring out the butterball and I'm going to smooth out this bit. These rocks here, if I go and drill them off and make them a little bit nicer, and also bring out the bin chicken and clear up a bit of this mess around here, I think we should be able to get the tank up this pathway. I don't believe that there is a very smooth way to get up onto this elevated plateau without clearing that up. All of the other paths that I've looked at in the past have no chance at all, except for maybe one. Now that I think about it, there might be one that will work. Let's try it out. So if we go and grab, should be that one, I think. Remote. Yeah. Okie dokie. Chicken hook, here we come. Now, my thoughts are, let's scout out the terrain and just make sure that I do have to clean that bit of roadway up so that I can get out. And the chicken hawk is going to be the easiest way to do this. Thankfully, even though I destroyed that other one, and we'll go through how I shouldn't have done that shortly, because, oh man, there is a much simpler way of doing what I did. What I was thinking was whether I should check around the far side of the solar axis little peninsula of mountain and see if there's a way up from the lake over there, because that should get us up onto this plateau. That bit looks a bit messy through there, but I think we can probably avoid that. Is there a nice slope down, or is it all going to be cliffside and horrible passes? Well, that doesn't look good. That all looks very much not good. I think it's all going to be like this. I think making a roadway is my only option. I could probably make some sort of pathing vehicle, but really, let's just use the butterball and get this thing done. I don't want to spend all this time building another vehicle just for one thing like that. Or is that drivable, or is that too steep? I think that's all going to be way too steep up that cliff face there. Could possibly navigate this, at least to this point, but I'm going to bet that this segment through here is worse than the bit near the base. So, yep, I would say we are definitely stuck with using that pathway right near the base, and it'd be probably nice to have it be a little bit easier to drive up anyway. That way I could probably use the goose to get up to the solar axe next time I need to take lots of resources up there. That would certainly be advantageous once I go to build it completely. Since I'm out here and staring at a ZMP.Steve marker, some of you might be wondering why that's there. That is there because Steve sometimes does the time lapses in here. Sometimes it's Reggie, sometimes it's Steve. It's just whichever one's easier for me to use. And Steve has his own little hidden cryopod somewhere on the base so that I don't have to keep respawning in the medbay that's upside down, because as I've mentioned before, about half the time you die when you respawn at that medbay, so it's a little bit unsafe. Now, I don't think this pass is any better than the one near my base, although Maybe it is. Maybe if I could even get to this point. Let's have a look. That bit certainly looks passable, though this valley is quite narrow, and it's this bit here that I'd be worried about. Oh yeah, that looks very rough. Well, all of that was for naught. We've got to clear up the bit that's right near the base that I probably should have cleaned up right at the beginning. And then this is what I want to do next, which is make a GPS marker roughly where that enemy base is, so that I know which way I'm heading, because I think I can head through all of this stuff, but there's a mountain to the right of where that base is. That's where I want to park the catapult so that it has extra range due to its height. And I want to make a GPS marker there so that I know where I'm heading, because if I head blindly, I'm pretty sure that all that's going to happen is I'm going to get lost and we're going to end up spending days driving around the wilderness. So once we've got that roadway cleared and all the other steps that I mentioned before, there is another thing we still need to do before we can get going. And that is build a connection for both the tank and the catapult. The tank needs a connection to get all of its ammo and all of its re-welding materials on board, and the catapult needs a connection for the same reason, but less so for the ammunition, more so for the components that it's going to launch at the enemy base. Now, I think I want to get up on this slope that's right in front of us. I suppose I should be worried that I'm going to start spawning more enemies right now when I really don't need it, and I am. Okay. That's okay. It's just a fleeting rival. It's nestled in this little valley here, this base. I bet I did that deliberately when I set it up. Now, I want to make sure I don't get shot, so I can't go really within... I need to stay outside 800 meters. There we go. There's the base. So I reckon if we park the catapult somewhere up here, we can start shelling it. I reckon with this much of a height advantage, I'll easily make 1.2 Ks. Alright, let's lower down. Okay. What? What? Well, that doesn't make any sense. I really hope that what I'm about to do doesn't lose the chicken hawk. Because for some reason, it does that to me sometimes when I'm connected. I can't... No! I can't make a GPS! What the... You should be able to make a GPS doing this. Oh, that's so annoying. No. No, 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 no. I sit in a chair to do this. Will that fix the problem? No! Dang it. Well, that's annoying because I can't even rename the chicken hawk. Oh. If anyone has any ideas of how to avoid what just happened, because it's happened to me a few times and I haven't been able to work it out, please let me know. I would love to be able to fix that. Particularly as right now I cannot rename this chicken hawk. It is stuck as Small Grid 5174, which is not exactly the most imaginative name. Although I do wonder if at some point I'll keep a vehicle named like that, that has a specific number. Something that might be fun. Alright, enough of me gallivanting around in the chicken hawk. Oh, enemy incoming. Get some height, get some height, get some height. I was about to say enough of me gallivanting around, but I don't think I want this sneaking up on me. So let's take it out. Hopefully not by face planting like I've done in the past. Alright, you're in range now. It should go down. Yep, it's going down. Okay. got to wait around for the blammo, and... Oh. That was very disappointing. I was hoping to at least see a little puff of something. Oh well. Back we go. Now it's definitely enough gallivanting around. Let's get this show on the road. The way I should have connected these is so much simpler and so much less destructive of chicken hawks than the way that I ended up doing it. And what we'll do is we'll grab our rotors. Rotor, just go for 4, and we will go add rotor head. And it's at about 0 degrees, which is what I want. And I want that for setting up a repositioning of this whole setup. So when I've got the hitch built, I want to be able to press a single button on a script to tell everything to move back to 0 degrees, and that will put it back in a position ready for the catapult to attach. So having this at 0 degrees to begin with is very helpful. Now, what we can do is with, regardless of the displacement on this rotor, go 1, 2, 3, and I've displaced it as far out as it goes. We can then grab our rotor head and blammo, we can put it in there. So easy. Ugh. Now, I'm actually going to move this right back to there because of that whole 0 thing. Now, I don't need 0 on both of these, but just in case this is useful to someone later, I wanted to show it. You can see the line on the rotor part moving between the 270 degrees and the 0 degrees position as I flick this back and forth. So if I place that there, when it attaches to that rotor in this position, it will say it is 0. So both of these rotors will be reading as 0 shortly. Which is perfect. It's exactly what I was wanting. So we hop in, we go rotor, it'll be rotor 5, and attach. Now it's going to say 57 degrees. That's because it's confused. It's not 57 degrees. Let's set our lower limit as -10, and now it goes to 0. And then we'll set both of them to have a rotor displacement of just less than 0, I think is what is best. Oh, maybe not that far. I've never quite sat around and figured out exactly what the displacement is and what you'd need to have for compressing rotors like this. Ideally, you don't want them squishing it or pulling apart that block because you're likely to generate some phantom forces doing that. But I think we're about right. Now, just as before, the hitch mechanism will basically be a few blocks out here, a rotor underneath, and this rotor underneath gives us our left-right movement, and then this rotor on the end of the piston stack here will actually give us our twisting motion. So we've got our up-down with these double rotors, our left-right with this one, and our twisting with this one. So we should have our full range of motion. Now, I had thought of, but I don't think I'll need to, place some rotors at this end of the piston stack. And that's because I forgot that I actually had a third piston here that I hadn't used. By pushing that one out, I should create enough gap between the tank and the catapult to be able to move cleanly. And to aid that sort of movement, what I'm going to do is have a button on the catapult, or at least some way of easily switching it, to turn propulsion and friction off on this set of wheels, this set of wheels, and the rearmost set of wheels, so that they can just slip nicely over the terrain, meaning that the pulling on this attachment of the catapult that's then a trailer won't cause scrubbing of all of those wheels, which will prevent some of the issues that I was having and hopefully make things move a lot more smoothly. Now, before I run out of hydrogen, let's go fill that up. And then I'm just going to quickly jump ahead to when I've done those little bits of design, as I'd really like to go through the painting. Alright, we are rapidly losing light outside, but I have got a complete trailer hitch for the catapult. I'm pretty happy with the armor design around here. It's a nicely complex, fits in with the rest of the design of the tank, and the sort of heavy barrel design I think suits the whole feel elsewhere. The rotors are a little bit less exposed because I've used half blocks and shouldn't cause any collisions between the blocks thanks to those. But I don't actually believe that they'll provide any reasonable protection. Fortunately, this hitch should not have to withstand combat. I should have the catapult well and truly clear of combat before the tank gets anywhere near the enemy positions. So, unlike the turret, those rotors don't really matter so much, I hope. Now, as I've been flying in and out, you might have heard the sensor sound and then a click. The click is the welders turning off because I've set up a pair of sensors under here that are covering pretty much the whole tank so that anywhere I move within it, those welders will turn off. And then if I hop in the cockpit and we go to first person, you can see the welders are on. Off, on, off, on. Easy. So, the other thing I have done, if we go into our list here, is go to a programmable block. We've got a hitch reset. Now, this is using Twinkie's rotor control script, and all I've done, and this is why I wanted the rotors to be able to have 0 as their neutral position, is set a command to tell these two hitch rotors to go to a 0 degrees position. Now, I've also got 2 timer blocks. These are set up with this is the hitch free? Yeah. So the hitch free, which is so that it can free spin once the catapult's attached, we turn all of the rotors off that we'd turned on, and I've set some increase and decrease upper limits because I found that by doing this, I prevented the rotor getting locked. The way that the rotor control script works is it actually sets the maximum or minimum limit of the rotor's movement to 0, whichever side it is of that, so that it can move back to that point and then stop. If we used that and just left it there, what we'd end up with is a hitch that couldn't move past that neutral position in one direction, which would not help us. So I set the timer block up to increase and decrease the limit. I could do this all with a programmable block, but then I would have had to spend days figuring out how. And I knew I could do it with a timer block, so that's why I've chosen to do it this way. The reset control script simply turns the rotors back on and then tells the programmable block to run, which sets everything to go to 0. So all I need to do to set up the controls for the hitch is to go timer block and go hitch free, trigger now, and hitch reset, trigger now. And that's it. So when I'm finally hooked up to the catapult, all I have to do is click hitch free, and when I want to detach, or when I have detached, I can press 2 to reset so I can reconnect. Nice. So that was... Ow! Oh, I think the sensors were a bit slow on that one. Good to know, I can get hurt. Thankfully I didn't die. I try and build a safety device and it fails me. And that's how I first die. That would be so uncool. I am going to get my health back from my upside down medical bay. Now that's the complete tank, at least model wise. We still need a paint job for it. And the catapult, let's have a look at what I did here. So as I was mentioning, I wanted to pipe up these welders, and you can see why I was originally hesitant to do that. This has quite the large overhang beyond these wheels, but I still think I hope it will be okay. I hope I don't end up bottoming out this back end, because that would really, really suck. I have also designed a new projectile. And this is quite simply, well, it's orange for reasons that I'm sure all of you guys know. And then it's just rounded armor over a central decoy, which oddly we can see by clipping through, which is kind of cool. And that's it, that's all it is, which I think should hopefully be obvious enough when we fire it. And then I've also placed a turret on the rear here, fitted all these out, so shortly, since it's now almost pitch dark out here, I think we should head inside and set up the connections for these things. So I think we're going to have to go small grid on top for this piston connection to our tank, because I don't think we'll be able to fit a large grid block between those wheels without causing all sorts of problems. So I think what we'll do is we'll grind out a nice 3x3 chunk in the floor, start drilling it out, and then see what we have to set up to get this to work. Okay, the way I see it, I've got two possible options here. I could use a rotor on its side, so let's just demonstrate what I mean by side. So an advanced rotor in a position like that, with small grid parts that will flip up into position once the tank is about in its right orientation. And that might actually be the simplest way of doing this. It may actually be a good option. And I could easily have it so that the advanced rotor is down at this level instead of up at the top level, so that when it folds down properly into the floor. I do kind of like that idea. It is neater than going big piston deep down in the ground and then a set of stuff on top. So with our advanced rotor like that, we can then go and pop a curved conveyor tube there. Straight. And let's line this up to vertical. So if we have that line up to vertical, or approximately vertical as it currently is, I should then be able to place something like that and then a connector on top, which currently is too high, but if we use some conveyor frames, I should be able to get it to about the right height. If I make this just barely tall enough, I may be able to just leave it fixed in position, like not even have to move it at all, so I don't really need to be able to flip it up and down if I put it in the right height where it just gets grab on that connector. So let's try and set that up. Yeah. Lock. Nice. I'm actually locked to the base. Oh, this is totally the way to go. That's put it in just where I need it to be. We'll be able to hook this up to the base conveyor network relatively easily. If I just pop that there, I should be able to grind that out. And it's still hooked up, and then I can just put the conveyor system in. Then I can pop some blocks in here once I drive off, so that I have less of a hole. Line this thing up perfectly to 0, put a rotor lock on it. We're good to go. Nice. Did I just lock myself in here? Almost. Come on, squeeze, squeeze. Suck it in. Alright. Hey. Oops, I wanted to get back in the cockpit so I could unlock. It's been a while since I've been down here. Now, I think I need to go across, and I'm willing to bet... Wait. Piston. Yeah, so that piston has to be the tick's parking spot. So I reckon if we just go straight shot across, we should get pretty close to running into where we need to be. Ha! Look at that! Perfection. Probably should have put the rotor on the other way so that this was easier to line up, but... oh well. It's done now. I don't think I'm going to bother redoing it. I think I'll just build the connection up. Alrighty, how much ammunition do I have? 469 ammo containers. That's actually pretty good. I was expecting a lot fewer than that. Let's park this thing up because the connection should now work perfectly. This parking job is always going to be difficult until I put a camera somewhere that'll be helpful. In fact, let's do that before I attempt this parking again. Let's go grab the stuff I need for a camera, and we'll put one on the back so that we can hopefully, even though it's going to break my brain trying to turn left and right looking through the camera, but hopefully be able to get this done right the first time, because I don't want to have to keep clipping in and out of third person. Alright, where shall we put our camera? Maybe I will just put it directly on that connector there and mess that line up. I think it's our best option. It's particularly with the camera rotation, that should be in a very opportune location. Camera view. There we go. Unlock. Ready to lock. Ha, worked perfectly. Now, hopefully, all of these guns should auto-load. Let's check it out. Turret. Yep. 8 boxes in every single one. We are now armed. Now, gun. Oh yes, the Gatling gun's loaded too! The main turret is loaded. And we have used... Holy moly! We've used almost 300... How? Wasn't that 469? How have I... 300? That doesn't make any sense. Oh well. Whatever. Is what it is, I guess. Medium cargo. I'm going to need to name these things so I can find them more easily. What we got? Medium cargo container 2. Let's go CC and let's pop another 150 in there for extra. Cool. We also want about 2,000 steel plate. We're going to want 1,000 of those. Why not 200 of those? Oh, nuts. I haven't locked the cargo containers. Alrighty. So that's a smattering of components and a bit more ammunition on board. We've got plenty of ammo in all the guns at the moment anyway. So hopefully that'll allow all our welders to function nicely and the tank to regenerate its armor as intended. It's going to be pretty heavy with all of this extra equipment on board. So I probably want to make sure that the wheel suspension is going to be strong enough. Let's connect up to the base because all of these... Oh, no. Disconnect from the base. Have you got a script? No, you don't. Tank. PB. Recharge. Edit. And I want the refueling script on this thing. Now, obviously with the tank in this spot, the catapult is not going to fit in here, and I would have to double the depth of this location to fit the catapult in. So I've been debating whether to drill one of these out now, or whether to see if I can fit the catapult into one of these spots. I'm pretty sure I can't. I made these somewhat narrower than the other ones, and the catapult is pretty broad. So I may go with a temporary connection somewhere for the catapult, just so that we can load it up as well. I wonder if I can just temporarily use the Tix hookup rather than having to drill out its parking spot just yet. Ooh. Should just need to extend that piston a little bit. Yes, nice. So the Tix spot is definitely a good temporary option. Some of you have probably been wondering all episode why I haven't mentioned the naming of the tank and the catapult. And that's because I was just being cheeky. I do have a name for these, and oh, that looks kind of interesting with the lights coming through there. I do have a name that I have chosen for the two of them. I really liked the idea of them having a naming system that joined the two of them together in some sort of way. And as with so many of my vehicles, I am happy with the idea of naming most of them after some form of bird. Obviously there are exceptions like Igor and the Tick, but generally speaking we've gone bird names. And considering what's going to happen with these two, which is the catapult flinging stuff incredibly close by, but hopefully never actually hitting the tank, I think that Roadrunner and the Coyote are probably quite fitting, since at least this one's a bird, and this one kind of fits in with the name of it. I was thinking of calling it Wile, but I feel like Coyote is better suited to the names that I've gone with so far. Now, the thing that I want to do while we're inside waiting for dawn to break is to start painting these things. And I've got a rough idea in mind of what I'd like to do. There's not a lot of reason to go with camouflage, disruptive pattern camouflage sort of setups in Space Engineers. Once you're in visual range of something, you can pick it out pretty much regardless of the coloring of it. And obviously, since we're fighting against drones, the visual appearance of a block is completely irrelevant. I could paint this thing fluorescent pink, and it would make no difference versus painting it perfectly camouflaged against its background. But that doesn't make camouflage any less fun. And I think we're going to sort of go with a semi-camouflage look. And I need to get my spray paint can because painting with the level of decoration that's on these blocks using the standard setup is going to be a nightmare. So I was thinking of keeping a little bit of the yellow involved in the design, similar to a lot of the other designs around here, specifically the goose with its yellow and white and grey look, but leaning more heavily into the grey this time. So trying to come up with some bold lines that go through this where there's some hints of yellow in them, and then using different tones of grey to make a semi-urban, for want of a better term, camouflage pattern. And I think what we'll start with is something like this. So the camouflage on this is more for style points than it is for actual function. Obviously, we're never going to be fighting in an environment that's all grey with these things, since neither of them are really set up for fighting on the moon. But, you know, we could refit them. We could turn them into something that's capable of fighting on the moon, which could be fun. But I think having some colour in here will just make it much more interesting to look at and a bit more fun than simply going a camouflage pattern across the whole thing. Now, it's blocks like painting these that are why I'm using the spray paint brush. I do love the fact that it is kind of more survival-esque as well, because I've actually got to use resources to create paint, even though it is just rock. But the ability to access blocks underneath is so helpful when painting things like this. Even if it does sometimes mean you paint stuff deep inside the vehicle that you don't really need or want to paint. Now, there is a script out there that will actually paint your ship in camouflage patterns when you set up the different colors that you want it painted in. And I was tempted to use it, but I did want to get, as many of you should be unsurprised by, I did want to get a bit more control over my design than that. Right now, all this looks like is the static that you used to get on an old analog TV set when it wasn't tuned in properly. And that is kind of dull. And this is why I always struggle with the idea of making attractive looking camo patterns. I think you need to go for bigger, bolder shapes to make things look nicer, as what I'm doing right now is making larger chunks of one color and breaking it up with other ones. And I think if we go back, now that I've done a bit of that, yeah, it definitely looks better if we go for bigger shapes and bigger areas as we do it. And I do like that it kind of even brings out the yellow accents more. It does make me think that I don't like this area though. I'm also tossing up whether I want 2 tones or 3. I definitely want 3. 2 tones is not enough. When you're actually using something like this in a true military situation, the point of the camouflage is to break up the shape of the object you've painted it onto. So you don't want to follow the lines and shapes of that object. So you want to go up like that and break it up. But I'm not sure if that's how I want to do it here. I see camo patterns used in all sorts of fashion things and all that side of stuff. And I think a lot of the patterns used there are sometimes deliberately following form, so that you can still see the shape of something, even though it's got that, I guess what they're trying to do, edgy kind of camouflage look, or kind of rough look. And that may actually be the way to go, to not properly do this, to not use it the way that camouflage is supposed to be done, but instead use it in a purely stylistic sense. I guess we'll see at the end, and I might even just leave it for an episode, and or a couple of episodes, and see if I want to change it and fiddle and finesse it later. I think I'm mostly happy with this pattern. There are a few bits that look a bit more spotty than camo pattern, and I'll probably gradually get to them and adjust them over time to try and make it look like it's a more deliberate pattern rather than just a random smattering of noise. Overall, I think this has worked quite nicely. A couple of things I wanted to talk about that I thought of while I was painting this. First off, if you're going to do something like this yourself, I would strongly recommend picking a base color, kind of like the medium grey, and painting the entire grid with Control-Shift middle mouse with that color first. It has been quite the challenge to ensure that all of the white has been painted over. And I bet there will be bits and pieces like these down in here that I may never get to properly. So that is one downside of how I've done it. Unfortunately, I thought about that after I'd already painted about half the thing, and I realized that I was not going to be happy repainting that section again. I just decided to continue. I'm not really sure which would have been more time efficient. Probably going back and repainting the bit that I'd done at the beginning would have been. But, oh well, that's the way it is. Now, another thing that I thought of once I started trying to work out what I was going to do with the top section here was that while I've told you what names I've picked, I didn't really talk about some of the other awesome names that people suggested. The most common suggestion, by far, was calling this thing Hydra, or the Hydra, which makes a lot of sense given its regenerative, well, hopefully, regenerative capabilities. The other one that this top end made me think about was calling this thing something like the Rabid Rooster and putting a giant coxcomb on this, something big, bright red on top, which I did think would be kind of funny, but I wanted this design to be a little more serious. So I was very tempted, but didn't quite decide to do that. Now, I'm doing the same thing I was just saying that I shouldn't do, which is I am not painting the entire grid when I start. So Control-Shift middle mouse will paint the entire subgrid. There we go. Now we got something better to work from. I want to have a little bit of yellow on top here, and I think this little segment here is perfect for it. I don't think I want it to go forward, and that may actually be all the yellow I put on here. I'm trying to not go over the top with the yellow so that it's definitely a prominent accent, because the less you have, the more it shows up. And I think that'll probably work nicely. And now we'll just go back to our camouflage patterning over this thing. I think I've mentioned before that camo patterns are not something I'm familiar with. At least I did mention it in the comments. So I did want to do this as a bit of a challenge to myself to see if I could come up with a look using a camo pattern that I actually liked. And you know what? One of the toughest things I found about it was fighting the urge to match color to form. So many of my designs, what I do is I paint segments that are elevated, that are inset, different colors, and tried to use the form to guide the paintwork. But it's the exact opposite with this. You want to use the paintwork to disguise the form. And I've just spent all that time making the form look somewhat pretty, or at least somewhat detailed, and then I'm trying to hide it with the paint color. And especially in areas at like the back here where I've got quite complex forms, I think it makes the camouflage pattern really hard to look any good, because you end up with what I was talking about before, more of a noise pattern than an actual camouflage type pattern. And that's why I suspect I'll be adjusting things over time to make it better, or what I think is better. Underneath, I've just gone for a uniform grey, and same around the wheels. The functional components inside are still mostly left in their original undercoat white. And I want to fix that one. There are blocks that I can't quite get to, so I've just left them be, although I will want to repaint that container. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, painted, stocked up, most of the buttons on the hotbar ready to go. Still will be a few more things to define that I'm sure I will pick up over time, but Roadrunner, she is pretty much ready to go. The catapult, however, much less so. Let's start with doing this the sensible way and start with our medium grey. Now, for the catapult, I'm not going to go with the whole camouflage pattern for it. Since it's not going to be directly in combat, it's just going to have a more somber tone to the colours than I normally use on my builds. So it's going to be the bulk of the colour is going to be this medium grey. It's not going to be the white that we normally use. Part of the reason for that is I just don't feel like the camo pattern will work for this. And since it's more of a support vehicle, they're often done in more of a simple tone rather than a full-on camouflage pattern. This one, I get to actually paint to match form rather than to hide it, which will make me much happier. Something else I noticed while I was recording the time-lapse is that, oddly, these all have idle movement on from Steve's point of view. From my point of view, they're all static, but from the multiplayer perspective, they're actually all still with idle movement on, which is really strange. I had never realized that problem before. But, still, I'm not going to complain about it, because I always quite like the disco dance parties that go on with, or the turret discos that go on with the time-lapses. It's always a bit of a fun side effect of having idle movement on. And I think that's a reasonable paint job we've got for the catapult now. It'll certainly pair up nicely to the tank. So, just a couple of things left to do. Load up the catapult with inventory, clean up the road up to the plateau so that we can actually get there. So, Butterball, you're being roped back into duty so that I can clean up that path a little bit. Something I probably should have done a very long time ago, as it's something that has limited the mobility of my wheeled vehicles considerably since the very beginning, when the tick failed to get up that path. There would definitely be some advantages in doing this with a wheeled mining machine, as I'd be able to control the height a bit more accurately than I can with the Butterball. But I really just want to get on the road, and so this is going to be the quickest way to get this done in a reasonably clean fashion. If I'd done it by hand, I could have controlled exactly what I was drilling out much more accurately, but it would have taken so much longer to try and get this thing smooth enough for the tank and the catapult to be able to come up in while they're being towed. I think I'd be able to move them up individually, but I really don't want to have to do that. Whoa! Fire! Fire! Ah! Oh, that was close. Did I even... Looked like I almost took a bullet then. Oh, I should have been paying attention to the radar. That is the very base that I am planning on attacking. If it had taken out the Butterball, that would have been really sad. I know I can print one, but still, sad. This is the original. Okay, how are we looking for our roadway so far? Making some progress. Okay, I think that's mostly done. I went in and ground out most of the little bits as well. Hopefully this path will be drivable. I guess it's time to find out. Got to get the Coyote and the Roadrunner out on the bridge and get ready to fly them. To fly them? No, I'm flying now. To drive them. Yeah, did remember which control the door was. I was having a moment there. What the? No! No, you silly tank! What have you done? Ah! No, 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 no. Off. On, off. There we go. What the heck? are you targeting at, you dopey thing? There is foxhole material in between you and that. Now there is less of my hangar bay. Alright, we gotta get this thing out of here. Also gotta probably rearm it thanks to that little incident. Now a few people mentioned that I should probably widen the bridge for the tank and the catapult. The reason I'm not going to do that is the terrain doesn't really allow for me to do it in the way that I would like. So it's going to stay as it is. Now, we should be able to turn that programmable block on for the turret script again. Should also probably turn the safety sensors from show on HUD off. Oh, they're shooting it. I'm going to go over there and find out. See if I can get rid of it. Because that's so much ammunition to waste. They're still targeting it? No. Good. Got them set up the same, pretty much the same as the tank, and they still scoot me sideways. Oh, I know what's wrong. Huh. So, I had set up a catapult wheels trailer group. It's the group that we turn the friction off, so that it can actually... Whoa, let's have a look at this. Oh no, that is not going to end well for the solar panels. Oh no. That did so much damage to the solar tower. Oh, why did I park you there? I should have known better. Oh, that's some repairs that we'll have to do when we get back. Damn it. This is getting really destructive. It's not helpful. I just want to get on the road. There we go. Now we can drive a bit better. And we got a chunk floating on top of here, which is not helpful. There we go. So on my second hotbar, what I've set up is a control for the friction of that catapult trailer wheels group, so that I can use them, as I am right now, to push me up steep hills like this. But then I'll be able to turn them off when I'm driving more normally. But it is helpful having that extra force from them to try and get up this really steep bit. Hopefully this is the worst terrain I have to cover, because anything else like this I'm just going to try and drive around, but driving around this to try and get up to the plateau will probably take me about 30 kilometers out of the way, which just seems excessive. And we are slowly making progress. It is looking somewhat promising. No, don't get snagged there. No! I just totally jinxed myself. Alright, let's see what we can do. We are snagged on what? I could also soften the suspension a bit further. I have already softened it a bit. But I don't want to do it too far because the thing tends to bottom out if I do. I figured I would have to do a little bit of fine-tuning of this as we went up this section. Just hope that's all we have to do. This is a very heavy load for these little wheels to be carrying. But it is doing it. We're getting there. There's not much further to go. Come on. Come on, I want to camp on the plateau and continue this journey tomorrow morning, but I don't want to be back. I don't want to be at the base, basically. I want to get up there. Come on. Yes. You are almost there. Oh, this is looking good. It's looking like we're making it. Let's get some more strength out of the suspension so we don't bottom out. Let's turn our friction back down on our trailer wheels so that we're not going to scrub so hard. Ah, look at that. Yes. Finally. Ugh. And now there's some giant debris in the way. Okay. Let's park and move that out of the way. Now, if you use this sort of wheel setup and you make the vehicle actually light, not weighing 250 tons, you can move over terrain ridiculously easily. But the challenge here is that I've made these vehicles incredibly heavy. Oh, look at that. We are on our way. On our way to finally rid ourselves of that base that keeps swarming us. So next time, we will actually get ourselves into position, and I'm going to start launching our catapult automatically at the enemy while going in with the tank. We are going to do the assault. So there's all that and plenty more to come, and I will see you then. Oh, there's also the bit where I have to repair the solar panels that I destroyed, but let's not think about that just now. See you all next time.